Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is October 31st, and we have some very active weather coming up here, folks, for the next few days on in through the extended. You can see the atmospheric river here draped across Washington, Oregon on the infrared satellite imagery. This system's going to drop south and east across the region. Then we're going to bring this very cold air aloft behind it across Pacific Northwest and crash the snow levels down. Then we're going to bring an even stronger system on the day Thursday and through Friday morning. It's going to dive this low pressure system through British Columbia, Alberta, and cast a strong pressure gradient across the Pacific Northwest, bringing some strong winds. And then Arctic air looks like it's going to settle down across British Columbia here as we go through the extended. So lots to talk about. Let's just dive right into it here. You can see the precipitation totals along the Washington Olympics here, and for some of the Southwest BC interior, Northwest interior here, over 2 inches. A lot of these areas, you can see the orange dots are 2 areas, the yellow dots are 1 inch, and the blue ones are between 1/4 and 1 inch here. And you can see the system is diving south, so these totals will increase across the Willamette Valley, the Cascades of Oregon, as the system pushes off to the east, and then the cold air arrives and kind of cuts off the bulk of the precipitation. But I think some totals along the Olympic Mountains were up over 5 inches, if I am correct. Up over 1 inch at my house here in the central Puget Sound as we speak. Now look down towards Medford. Look at all these gale warnings, winter weather advisories, high surf advisories, hazardous sea warning, frost advisories, winter storm watch, beach hazard statement, all kinds of stuff going on here with this frontal system rolling down through southern Oregon here. We'll take a look at what kind of snowfall totals we can expect out of this, but watch out along the coast if you're out there viewing waves as well. Some big waves are rolling around out there this morning. It should wane a bit during the day today, but it seems like every year somebody gets in trouble out there along the coastlines as far as these big waves washing up over the rocks. And check this out. The high surf advisory goes all the way up through southwest Washington. You look up towards Seattle, we've got flash flood watch for the slopes of the Cascades here, mainly burn scar areas. And you can see the Skykomish is actually flooding there too. Hazardous sea warnings out there as well. So lots going on here across Pacific Northwest. So if you are near one of these burn scar areas, heads up. Heavy rain is expected, and this will continue on in through Friday, or actually pick back up again Friday, I should say. The atmospheric river is sagging south, and that will take the heaviest rain with it here and give us a break for the next couple days. But by the time Friday comes around, we're going to be dealing with this return flooding here across the west slopes of the Cascades. Now, taking a look here, looking closely, you can see the big waves that were running up along the Washington, Oregon coast this morning. This should wane as we go through the day today a bit, but it's going to be a slow transition from these big waves. Some breakers up over 27 feet are possible along the coastline today. This is Spokane talking about the snow showers Tuesday, Wednesday as this colder air moves over the region aloft. So just a heads up, a lot of the passes are going to be, pretty slick, and the snow is going to start piling up a bit here as we go through the next 7 to 10 day period. Hard freeze is possible for some areas, especially east of the Cascades. You can see some of these temperatures down into the teens potentially. Strong southwest winds is with that system diving through the area Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Possible power outages and tree damage. Some pretty strong winds coming. We'll check that out in the forecast also. Winter weather advisory for portions of northeast Oregon in towards southeast Washington as well. You can see this advisory here. Some pretty good totals rolling around here. Meacham, Tollgate, look at that. And some of the areas could be up over a foot in the higher terrain here through northeast Oregon here, the Blue Mountains. Now taking a look, this is Pendleton calling for the snow levels dropping here, which is going to become obvious as we look at the forecast coming up here. This bump would be temporary and we would drop back down again potentially after that. But this is mainly for the east slopes of the Cascades here, Pendleton, Oregon. Now this is for Oregon, Washington, Blue Mountains here. If you're out in that terrain here, well, look at these temperatures dropping down to, the terrain is already pretty high in eastern Washington. This is getting close to the surface in some areas as we go through the extended forecast. Now looking at things now, this trough is what brought us, this trough and low pressure system here is what brought us this atmospheric river moving in through Washington, Oregon currently. You can see the troughing set up here over the Pacific Northwest. Should be bringing some mountain snows with the cooler air with this high pressure sets down across British Columbia. Then here comes Friday's system racing across BC and through Alberta. Strong low pressure system casting a pretty strong gradient across Pacific Northwest. That's what's going to bring us our winds here, mainly probably starting Thursday night into Friday morning here. And as we go into the extended a little bit here, this is about Saturday morning. Look what's happening here. We're getting this ridge setting up here, and this is going to drive some colder air down in through British Columbia here. The arrival of Arctic air looks like a pretty good probability of getting at least into central BC at this point. This is last night's European run, goes out 144 hours, but you can plainly see the ridge here. So Arctic air is starting to look like a good bet. How will it impact much of the Pacific Northwest is still yet to be seen. Now taking a look here, European 18,000 feet here. You can see this polar lobe bringing that cooler air with the first system here. Here comes Friday's system. Look at this polar lobe just blast through BC in through Alberta. Tight grading across Pacific Northwest. Strong atmospheric river. Going to roll in across the region here. Big precipitation totals. And then the really cold air is going to arrive in the wake of that system. As you can see this polar lobe come off the coast of British Columbia here. The trajectory of this is going to mean everything as far as snowfall across Pacific Northwest. How far south will it get? What kind of trajectory will it take? Is it going to be moisture starved? A lot of questions need to be answered before we start getting too hyped up about it. But the cold air does look like it's on its way. Now, this is the European going out a little bit further in the 10-day period. Now, watch this. Here we go. Here goes Friday's system here. I want to show you that moving across Alberta here, the tight gradient. But now in the wake of this, look at this Arctic high sag all the way south across BC. Now, the key to this Arctic high is these low pressure systems moving in on the southern periphery of this. With one that moves in like this on the north side, you could get even some lower elevation snowfall as these move onshore here. And then watch through the extended here as this Arctic high really sags. You can imagine this big dome of air. It's going to be pushing Arctic air out over Washington and Oregon here. You can imagine that air moving through the river valleys and the crags and the mountains as it moves over the ocean here. So pretty interesting weather is on its way, folks. This looks like pretty good model agreement on this Arctic high setting up across British Columbia as we go in through later the following weekend into the following week. Now, taking a look here, this is GFS versus GFS. It's been showing some pretty dynamic situations unfolding here. The first system here brings the cold air aloft, mountain snows. Then here comes Friday's system here. Tight pressure gradient is going to set up here with this very cold air aloft. This is the 10,000 feet, but extremely cold air. And you can see the much warmer air just to the south of it. So you can imagine this gradient that's going to set up. This atmospheric river is going to bring some subtropical moisture into the area here. And then the snow levels just completely crash here. So the GFS has been waffling about a little bit, and I'll show you where that kind of takes, where that's occurring here. Actually, let's update this because I'm sure we have more GFS information at this point here. Let's go ahead and bring it back to one run before, and let's power through to where we were. There goes Friday's system. Here goes the cold air moving down the coast of British Columbia here. Now watch, it spins this cold air into the region here, but look at this cold air that's set up across British Columbia. This is the most recent run here. The 12Z is colder than it was in the 06Z. And as we go through the extended here, look at this cold air move off over the coastline of BC, then back into Washington and Oregon. On the 06Z, it didn't have that. It took it away. But on the previous run, it had it also. So the GFS is kind of waffling back and forth. But this is very cold air over western Washington, Oregon, British Columbia as we go on in through the extended here. So we have to watch this closely, folks. We could be talking about a little bit of lowland snow even as we go through into early November. Now, taking a look here, more on that later here. Now, taking a look here at the wind speeds coming up here. This is the European 10-meter wind gust. Here comes Friday's system. Look at that. Seattle, 43. Pretty good wind gusts. And look at Spokane, up over 50 miles per hour. Higher terrain of the Cascades in Oregon. Look at the westerly surge down the Strait of Juan de Fuca here, possibly up towards 60 miles per hour across Whidbey Island as we go through Friday afternoon and evening, all the way towards the west shoreline here. And this would include Mukilteo and Everett. Bellingham getting some pretty good gusts there as well. So interesting system rolling through there on Friday. And that's kind of the gatekeeper for the Arctic air behind it that's going to roll down through British Columbia. So now looking at 850 millibar temperatures is the GFS. This is looking at right now. You can see the warm air aloft here. Warmer than usual. Atmospheric river sags south. Moves across Oregon. Cold air overspreads the Pacific Northwest. Look at some of this chilly air moving across the region. Good mountain snows will build up. But then look at Friday's system. Just another tongue of warm air moves in across the Pacific Northwest. But then look at the cold air spilling behind it. And look what's happening across Alberta, British Columbia. Look at this Arctic air. You can see the wind barbs showing this flowing off the continent here. back off over the Pacific Ocean and back into the Pacific Northwest here. Really great for mountain snows. Will it be a lowland snowmaker? That is yet to be seen. There's a lot of details to work out, as I've said, but look at this Arctic air mass excuse me, all the way down through British Columbia at this point, moving off the coastline here, spinning some cyclogenesis, which are little low pressure systems out here, which could bring some lower elevation snowfall in such a scenario. Now, taking a look at Mount Baker, this is Fahrenheit, folks. Look at this. Some of these temperatures are out in the extended below zero here up at the ski area, Mount Baker. A couple instances of that showing up here on the GFS. This is multi-run look at things here, but you can see the runs agree it's going to get pretty cold here across some of the mountainous areas. Stevens Pass, here comes our first area of cold air, and then that Friday system rolls through here and cold air flows in behind that. Pretty good snowfall amounts showing up here. This is the 24-hour totals here. Now look at Stevens Pass. You can see the progression of this cold air. The first one versus the second lobe versus that potential Arctic air sagging down across the region here through the extended forecast. So that's Friday's system there, would bring them above freezing briefly and then quickly crash back down here as we go on in through next weekend. Mount Hood, similar thing here. This is classic building that Cascade concrete. You're thawing and freezing and adding snow and taking it away and melting and then freezing and then bringing more snow on top of that. A lot of the different dynamic layers occur across our snowpack here. That's why we live in avalanche country out here. That's why you got to be careful when you're out there and the snow starts piling up. All kinds of different layers in our snowpack. Now looking at Whidbey Island here, look at some of these westerlies coming down through the Strait of Juan de Fuca here on the European. A lot of these ensemble members over 50 miles per hour. The mean is in the mid 40s here. We'll continue to watch that as we get closer here. Seattle-Tacoma might get its first gale here as we go through Friday as well. We'll keep a close eye on that also. But look at Spokane. A lot of ensemble members up over 50 miles per hour could bring some power outages across the region for places like eastern Washington, and that will include Idaho, western Montana, the higher terrain. This is going to be a pretty dynamic system rolling through here on Friday. Arlington as well. Some gusts up into the 40s look likely. Bellingham, a lot of ensembles up towards 50 miles per hour also. Pretty potent system rolling through Friday, just kind of showing you Great Falls out through Montana here. And look at Cut Bank International Airport out through Montana there. Pretty intense storm system rolling through. Now watching this total snow Kuchera inches here. This is European yesterday afternoon's run. Let's watch it just kind of pile up the snow with the first system. Then here comes... Now we're going into Thursday, Friday. Watch as we go through Friday here. Look at the snowpack just build up across the coastal areas of BC. The Cascades are really piling on through Washington and Oregon as well. The Olympic Mountains. Look at the Rocky Mountains just getting a nice, huge coating of snowfall here as we go through the 10-day period. I mean, look at this. We're pegged on the scale. This goes up to 48 inches, and we've got a lot of areas getting even more than 4 feet through the region here. And some snows all the way down through the Sierra Nevada are possible here with that first system. Actually, we dropped this cold air. This is only 48 hours, 60 hours out. So this would be very beneficial to them down there. But look at this 10-day snow totals. Very impressive across the region. And you can see a little bit of this activity starting to flirt with the lowlands here. Just a hair. We'll continue to watch that as we get closer. Don't sound the alarms just yet, but some pretty cold air moving into the region. GFS, this is snow depth. This is not snow total. Now, as we go through... Now we're on Wednesday here. Let's power ahead and let's watch Friday's system roll in here. And you can kind of see it eat away at some of the snowpack through the lower elevations here. But then as that cold air starts to sag over the area, really starts to build up our snowpack, especially across the Rockies, the coastal range of BC, through the Cascades. Some pretty good snowpack going on here. And you can look at this. The GFS starts to put, look at that. That's 4 inches on Seattle down towards Olympia there. The GFS gets kind of wonky. So this is purely fantasy, but that's 4 inches of snow on the ground there for Seattle, and even bigger amounts from Tacoma down towards Olympia here. But this is purely fantasy here. I'm trusting you guys with this, not to get too crazy with it. It's just something to watch for now. Now looking at this 24-hour total precipitation inches. So you can see this kind of move down through Oregon, eastern portions, push off to the east. Colder air aloft moves across the region here. Then here comes Thursday and Friday's potent system. Powerful atmospheric river points at Vancouver Island, BC, down through Washington, Oregon, bringing another huge round of precipitation here as we go through next weekend. Now look at this. This is the Washington coast. Here's the one that just moved through here, just classified as an AR2. You can see the next one is substantially stronger here. And again, we got to worry about burn scar areas inland, mainly across the foothill regions here, as some heavy rains are going to move across the region again here. This one's got good vapor transport and lasts more than 24 hours, giving it a category 3 rating there. Now, taking a look at 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, this is what we've been talking about here, folks. Good signal here for below average temperatures through early November. 8 to 14 day, very similar there. Now look at this risk of heavy snow in the experimental product here as we go through early November as well. Cascades piling it up, as well as the Rocky Mountains. Risk of high winds, we have the potential of generating some storm systems here, especially when Arctic air gets close by too. If it doesn't get down into the area, it can still spawn powerful storm systems and even windstorms back into the Pacific Northwest. So it is something that they are paying attention to through early November as well. So now one more thing here, the GFS on the left, European on the right here. This is yesterday afternoon. So let's see what kind of model agreement we have with these polar lobes moving around. Look at this diving down across Pacific Northwest. Good agreement here with that cooler air. Ridge sets up here across western Alaska. Good model agreement there. And you can see the European a little bit further east with this here as the GFS brings these lobes out over the water a little bit more. European tries to do so a bit here as we go in towards next weekend. But you can see there is still some disagreement. Although the European is going to bring cold air down into BC, the GFS would be more dynamic and allow better storm systems to roll through the Pacific Northwest. Here we are at 10 days out. At this point, you can kind of see the difference in the polar lobe out over the Pacific Ocean here in the GFS and more inland on the European here. So I'm be interested to see if the European shifts west or just kind of stays where it is here as we go through this morning's run. So interesting period coming up here, folks. It's definitely going to be active. We have multiple threats. We have snow even possible in some of the lowland areas. We got wind storms coming through here. A lot of mountain snows. We got big waves on the coastline. Huge precipitation maker coming on the day Thursday into Friday. So just crazy weather is coming up here, folks. And yeah, so you can see the first system coming here, then way back off to the west would be Friday's system. But that's still in the organizational stage. We are still only on Monday here, but that storm system has been showing up in the models well for Friday. And then that Arctic air, pretty good model agreement here. At least BC is going to get some Arctic air, and how it interacts with Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana is still yet to be seen. But anyway, guys, hope you guys are liking these videos. It looks like 50% of the people who watch my videos don't subscribe. So I'm giving you guys a little shame job there. Go ahead and click subscribe and help the channel grow here. Let the algorithm grow and let the word get out to more people across Pacific Northwest. So anyway, hope you guys are having a good day. Each day is going to bring a little bit more confidence in what we're going to see coming up here through the end of the week on in through the following weekend. So anyway, I will talk to you guys tomorrow.